Welcome to another installment of Unraveling Religion. I'm your host, Joel Lessies, and I'm here with a returning guest and a good friend, I would call her, Reverend Mary Masters of Unity Church. How are you today, Mary?
Good. And very glad to be here with you, Joel.
I'm so glad to have you. And we spoke for a moment prior to the show about what's this going to be about today, and I was just expressing to Mary my heartfelt gratitude and appreciation of her understanding of Christianity from our last talk, both the metaphysical, esoteric, or mystical element combined with the practical element, blended in a moderate way. And does that summarize things accurately, or maybe not, Mary? I don't know.
Gosh, well, I was really enjoying just hearing you talk about it. You know, sometimes being in unity and being the minister here, I am so immersed in it, and it's wonderful to hear your perspective. You know, I do think we very much are about an experience of God.
Yeah.
It's not just about talking about God, but having an experience of it, which is the mystical and the spiritual aspect of it.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we are, I think someone has said culturally Christian, but you know, we believe there's one God and many paths to knowing God.
Sure.
And honoring each individual's right to choose their path, to find their path, to let it find them. And whether you use the word God or not doesn't matter to me, you know.
It doesn't change what it is, does.
You know, we're still talking about the same energy and the same presence. Yeah.
The same omniscience.
Yeah.
Terrific. So the Zen Master Dogen, who I'm a big fan of, the Zen Master Dogen was, I think he brought Buddhism from, China to Japan. He was the transmitter of Zen Buddhism from, China to Japan. Mm-hmm. And in there he said a couple of different things. He said, there are many languages but one tongue, mm-hmm. which is exactly your expression and understanding.
Yeah.
And the other is that he used to be a student at a temple, and he studied there for a long time. And one of his disciples, Shunryu Suzuki, who wrote Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, at this temple, many centuries later, had in the book Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, talks about how when he was in the monastery, he could not understand that there was anything special about it. Yet when he went away and came back, he saw tears pouring down people's faces when they saw the monks in their activity, carrying out these common everyday activities. And I'm just wondering what you think about that.
Well, that's a beautiful story. And you know, what came to mind to me as you were sharing that is our Unity headquarters is Unity Village outside of Kansas City, Missouri.
Oh, it is? I didn't know.
And I suppose it's the closest thing to, well, you know, sort of like it's our Mecca.
Yeah.
You know, it's where Unity was founded, and it is our world headquarters, and it is a very sacred place.
Oh, it sounds like it.
Beautiful buildings and campus, and you know, that's where Silent Unity, where people have been praying 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year for 120 years. And I remember the very first time I went to Unity Village, I was just in tears as I drove up and moved in, or drove in the driveway, and it's really a campus of buildings, And I remember when I stepped into that building where Silent Unity is headquartered, a particular building, the energy was just so thick. It was like, you know, the prayer energy and consciousness, it felt like you could slice it like a loaf of bread.
Yeah, it becomes tangible.
It was just tangible. And, you know, and then when I went to seminary and studied to become a minister, I lived there for a couple of years. And finally it came time to leave, you know, to go out into the world. And on the one hand, I remember at one point just before I left, driving past the campus and looking over at Unity Village, and it is a place that I've always considered so sacred. But then I just finally felt in my heart that, yes, that's a special place, but every place is special. That energy is everywhere, really. And that was really a profound moment for me and it still is special to go back there, but to know that, well, maybe it was just my time then to finally take that energy out into the world, or to share it more broadly.
Yeah.
But
oh my
anyway, that's what came to mind to me when you talked about the monks in the monastery.
It would make sense, right, that we go to a very holy, sacred place, and then we get sent forth when we mature to disseminate or to expand the light, right?
To be an expression of the light. Yeah.
How beautiful is that? Yeah.
So and so those places exist in every spiritual tradition, and they are I guess I feel that we can have that experience everywhere. I can have it going for a walk in the woods, or listening to beautiful music, or being with,
brushing our teeth.
Doing the ordinary things,
But, what's so interesting also, Mary, is that, of course there would be many languages in one tongue, because, and really, how could these many languages that express the one true expression, we have a shared condition, a human condition, how could it be any otherwise? Why would it be that a system of thought would dictate and separate when truly what is in us and between us is completely unified? It is only in our minds that we separate this from that, right?
Yeah, I think that's really true. And that is one thing I love about unity, is we don't like to refer to ourselves as a denomination, because denomination implies separation. You separate denominations of money or bills, or that focuses on what's red. Or rather, we like to think of ourselves as trans-denominational, that it's about sort of building the bridges or finding those things we have in common with each other. And I just figure, well, God, we have so many different, people are different in different places in their life and in their spiritual journey. And so people need different things at different times. And so they need different kinds of experiences, or for things to be languaged in different ways. And it's like somebody said, we're all going to the same party. It's just some of us are running and jumping, and some are skipping, and some are walking, or some are crawling.
That is true. That is true.
Wandering in the desert. But ultimately, we're all going the same place.
Absolutely. I always thought about this, that I'm very curious. I hope I don't catch you off guard with this question. But I'm wondering, there's such an emphasis on Jesus and the teachings of Jesus, which, as a teacher, he was a good teacher.
Yeah.
But I was wondering, what are some other teachers that you have, maybe even just from the New Testament, and what do they teach you? There's always there's the tendency to focus, like, there's the light on Jesus, but there were many great teachers around him, correct?
Yeah, oh boy, absolutely. And, of course, Buddha and Lao Tzu, and from many spiritual traditions, and Moses. And, I tell you, one person that I've developed a great fascination with over the years is Paul, the Apostle Paul. And I love, one author writes about him, Paul is both appalling and appealing. That he said a lot of wonderful things, and did a lot of wonderful things, and he also said some pretty appalling things. It's many people cite references that he said to justify slavery or justify oppression against gay people, and some of the things that we most dislike as progressive Christians come from Paul. But then he said so many great things. And
as a human being who is awake, that is appalling to anyone.
Anyone
who is awake, who knows themselves.
But I just, we can sort of think that I can see, aspects of myself in every character in the Bible, and that's what metaphysical interpretation is really about. And really, as I've studied Paul's life, it actually really fascinates me, the contrast between Paul and Jesus.
Oh.
Because Jesus, in his whole lifetime, we don't think he ever traveled more than maybe 100 miles from his birthplace.
Oh.
And we don't have anything written down by Jesus. The only reference we know is it says one time in one of the Gospels he wrote something in the sand, but there are no letters or anything. Whereas Paul traveled thousands and thousands of miles, and many people feel that Christianity exists today because of Paul more than because of Jesus.
Yeah, of course.
And of course, the mode of travel back then, he used the most modern form of transportation and communication they had at the time. Boats and foot and on donkey and writing letters. He was a prolific writer. All of the, half of the New Testament are letters, many of which are attributed to Paul. But he kept moving a lot. He moved from town to town to town. And one time, and his ministry spanned like 40 years. Jesus 3 years. So but. And one of the things that fascinates me about Paul is he kept having to move from town. He'd go one place and he'd talk or preach for a while, and then he'd have to move on. And there were usually one of three reasons why he moved on from one. And we can all think about that for ourselves when we move on from one experience to another. Sometimes he moved on because he was being stoned and he had to move on to save his life, to get out of town. He had to get out of Dodge to live to preach another day, And then sometimes he moved on just because he had a vision. He woke up in the middle of the night and he had a vision. I'm supposed to go now to Corinth, or I'm supposed to go to another, And then sometimes he just moved on because his message fell on deaf ears. He was preaching and nobody was interested, so
preaching to the stones.
And I felt, well, sometimes in our own lives, I have to make change in my life, either because I'm in pain and just we get out of a relationship because it's uncomfortable, or a job or living situation. People move because it's really uncomfortable, and that's why Paul. Or sometimes we move because we have a vision of something better we want to move towards.
Absolutely. Wow.
Or sometimes we change just because things are flat, we're not
flat, or the very nature of why Jesus wrote in the sand, because everything is changing. Nothing is permanent here.
So I just see so much about his life. You talked about other great teachers. That I just, when I look at all the travel that he did and the reasons he kept having to move from town to town, I think, well, when I look back at my life, every major change has been for one of those reasons.
Sure.
Either I was uncomfortable and unhappy, or I had a vision of something I wanted to move toward, or I just wasn't resonating with the people I was around, and I needed to find something new. And that's true for us today. And
that is the amazing thing
we're
about
all teachers for each other.
Yeah, we are. It's true, Mary. We are all truly, I think, more than we are teachers, we are students.
Yeah.
Right? This is the way that I've actually said this often and feel it deeply. I never want to be considered a teacher. I only want to be a student. And there'll be times where, because truly before the one, we were all just his students. We were just his students. And he is our teacher. And so we may take the role of holding hands together in class, right? But this is a shared experience, Mary. And there's no mistaking here that there is really no human that is a teacher other than what God designates for each one of us to be in the various roles of the darkest dark and the lightest light. It is God's will that we, more than we choose what we will be, we are chosen for what we will be.
That's beautiful.
I think it's true, Mary. I think it's true. That's been my experience.
And so, what you're talking about also is, what the Buddhists refer to as the beginner's mind. Always being open. And we can even, repeat an experience many times, but always approaching it with a beginner's mind. Something, there's some gift in it, something new.
So I feel called. I feel called to express this to you. It's really interesting this has arisen, but I've done a massive, a kind of like, I've done a lot of work on myself to heal. And I know that this is true of all of us. And I'm wondering, what is your take on, like, just let's take it from a few different lenses, but forgiveness itself.
Yeah.
What is it? How do we really begin to embody or mystically forgive ourselves, others, and be forgiven by God? I mean, what are your feelings about this?
Wow, that's a wonderful question, and I don't know. I guess the thought that came to mind as you were speaking is that to really truly forgive, it's being at a place of peace within ourselves, maybe realizing that there's nothing really to be forgiven. And not that terrible things don't happen, or, sometimes people really do some very hurtful and harmful things. But one of our Unity writers talks about to forgive means to give for, to give something in return for.
Can I tell you that this resonates deeply with my experience? Because I think I had a friend who said one time, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, it is in self-forgetting that we find. And this forgiveness is really a forgetting of oneself, one's ego, identity, and psyche, for service to you and all that is around me. And so my work in forgiveness really becomes something of eroding or erasing or removing my identity, my ego. And then what am I? Then what am I? And I am, there is nothing to forgive, because there is really, in a sense, nothing here. Nothing that is me, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't come to that conclusion or place by myself. That was our exchange, right?
Yeah.
And so, thank you for that.
Wow. Yeah, you're welcome. And, forgiveness is part of our spiritual journey, I guess. We all experience sometimes hurts or regrets or disappointments or things that we wish we had handled differently. But it's kind of about sort of making peace with it.
Yeah. Within
ourselves, so that we can move forward and continue to live with an open heart and mind.
Isn't that what we all are wanting?
Yeah,
like just to live in openness.
It's just
right?
sort of to just get to a point where we don't allow whatever has happened, or however we perceived what happened, to shut us down or to have us hold back from being fully engaged in the world.
And what does that mean? Fully engaged in the world, other than like fully embodying this moment, right?
Yeah, being in the present moment.
Just beingness itself.
Trying to just be present to whatever comes up. Be present to people that present themselves, to situations. Letting go of our judgment about whether something is good or bad, or right or wrong, or for us or against us.
Do you think we have an inner compass?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, and that's what in Unity we refer to it as the Christ self, or higher self, or the still small voice, or the divine presence.
The still small voice. Yeah. My friend once told me that a long time ago, that she listens to the still small voice within.
And so it's, I don't know, I suppose an art and a practice to begin to learn to listen to that, and to try to, a lot of times that is probably the most commonly asked question is, how do I know, if this is divine guidance or if it's my ego talking, or how do I know, about any decision I'm trying to make. And I think we can have some ways of kind of discerning that a little bit. Does it bring you peace versus does it bring you something unlike peace? And is it for the highest good of all, or
for the benefit, the benefit of all beings,
for the
right?
benefit of all beings?
For the benefit of all beings.
You know.
But I'll tell you, what you say is so true and resonates with my experience in this simple litmus test. That if I make a decision and it is for the benefit of all, I feel a subtle good feeling. Just that. Nothing earth-shaking. It's just a subtle positive feeling.
Yeah.
When I think about something for myself that I want or need, that maybe I don't, but I feel I do, or that I'm taking from another, the opposite happens.
Yeah.
And we are embodied in our compass, right? I mean, our body is the compass.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that's true, that we can, sense it. I think sometimes I think of myself like a human pendulum. Sometimes people use pendulums to show me a yes, show me a, but we can.
My good friend Claire does
sense.
that, yeah.
Does she?
Oh, yeah, and her mom Pam.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and I think there are more and more people today that are seeking a spiritual experience. Yeah.
They are, and so this is very interesting too. How do we grieve? How do we grieve, Mary?
Oh.
Because they're in this world of sorrow and suffering, the backdrop of which is perfection, love, and beauty. But we have to get through the sorrow and the suffering in us.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, I don't know. What do you feel about that? What do you think?
Well, I think it's really important to be authentic with our feelings.
Yeah.
To me, the way to grieve is to just allow yourself to feel the feelings. And the grief, we go through there are several stages and phases of grief. There's shock and numbness and sadness and anger and abandonment. And, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote about these things. And then eventually you get to a place of acceptance, hopefully. And I like Brene Brown, who has written a lot of books. She writes about sharing your story with people who have earned the right to hear your story.
This is vital.
So,
this is vital.
And so some people it's not safe to open up to, or it's just not appropriate to kind of expect to open up and share deeply. But, to find people who you really feel like have earned the right to hear your story,
I'll say this about that. You know when you know. And if you don't know,
yeah.
it's not there. It's not presenting.
Yeah. So it's no judgment, but just finding the people where you feel safe, where you can really kind of share what's going on and be authentic.
Yeah.
People who have maybe shared that experience in some way, and so they can share their experience, strength, and hope.
So Mary, yeah. So we've laid the groundwork in a very, very kind of circuitous way, right? It's been like a little windy, but like, where are you at right now? Like, what is arising for you?
Oh. Well, one thing right now that is arising is I have a dog that is almost 14 years old. And she's very sick right now.
I'm sorry.
We're kind of getting to the point where we're going to need to decide about helping her make her transition.
As she's helped you so much in her 14 years.
This is the first time I've ever had a pet, really, a dog. And so this is my first time going through. Of course, I've lost loved ones and my parents and been present to a lot of people passing as a minister. But this is the first time I've gone through this with a dog. And,
Can I tell you this? I had to put down my Isaac, who was a golden, in 2012. He was 14 also. And my sense of him, he is much more prepared for it than I was.
Yeah.
And it's much more natural for him than it was for me. And I think preparation for that is I mean, that is like such a pure expression of unconditional love, what dogs offer, and it's I still think about, he's my puppy, he's my puppy, he'll always be my puppy.
Yeah.
That is difficult.
So that's kind of my edge right now of my own spiritual growth and learning is just being present for Perkins, and that's our dog's name, Perkins. It's a little girl, and she's been the love of my life, and she is such a wonderful dog.
What kind of dog is she, Mary?
It's a boxer terrier. Terrier mix.
You can't help but laugh.
I know. Yeah. She looks a lot like, if you ever saw that movie Benji. There's a dog, Benji. People say, oh, she looks like Benji, and really a cute dog. So just trying to listen deeply to know when is the right time and how to do this. Obviously we're talking to a vet, but just and preparing myself for this change.
Yeah. There's a saying in Judaism that the righteous souls, whether they incarnate as dogs or giraffes or people, righteous souls are even more powerful after their passing than they are even in life.
Oh, really?
They are not limited by the confines and the limitations of the body, and therefore their goodness is expressed much more freely.
Wow. Yeah. Huh.
So I know Isaac looks out over me.
Yeah.
And your Perkins will look out over you.
And that's what I think a lot of people have said too, that that they understand at soul level, that this is a natural process for them. It's just our own human sort of attachment, letting go. So that's one thing that's kind of right up for me right now.
This brings me to the next thing that I think is arising for me, and that is meditation.
Oh, okay.
Does Unity have a certain meditative practice? Is it meditation on scripture, meditation in walking, or is it a meditation of self?
Wow, well, that's a great question. And actually, meditation is a very important part of our practice, and we call it sitting in the silence. Although of course I believe you can meditate. Walking meditations are wonderful. I love to do one. We have a labyrinth out behind our church. That's another form of walking meditation. But our co-founder, Charles Fillmore especially, he said, gee, there's all these different ideas in the world. Every religion says that they're the one right way. And he said, the way I'm gonna deal with all this babble is go straight to headquarters.
There you go.
And what he meant by that was sitting in the silence, just listening,
goodness.
having his own direct experience. And so that's probably our primary form of meditation. And it can be like mindfulness, focusing on your breath to get centered. And there's kind of 5 basic steps to the meditation, relaxation and focus and concentration and realization and then gratitude. But it's basically just sitting and waiting in the silence. And sometimes it's helpful to read something before you start, whether it's from the Bible or any kind of inspirational reading, or to listen to music before, or guided meditation, or chanting, or sound, or just using a gong, or some, all those things are sort of, I just think of as meditation helps, things that, and just whatever it takes to kind of just, calm yourself, and then, it's really the mindfulness practice about, every time you notice your mind has wandered, come back to center. I find it helps a lot to use some kind of mantra or affirmation, even if it's be peace be still, something, one word, love.
That's...
Or an image, or having a picture in front of you.
Sure.
People use lots of different things.
It's funny. Questions themselves have implicit in them a need to return to something. It is the mind wandering and bringing it back. Do you feel like, I think that that there is a quietness beyond thought.
Yeah, I think that's very much true. Kind of, I think of it as like a still point. And sometimes that's the word I focus on, just stillness, or still point. It's kind of an experience or a feeling beyond words.
Many people are uncomfortable with silence, Mary. Do you find this?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I guess that's why our world is always so busy, we're so inundated with noise and sound and radios and, I have a friend that leads a meditation group, and he calls it Friends of the Silence.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting that what in psychology some call the shadow self, or the unconscious, it thrives on noise. It thrives on past, future, right? I found this in my own explorations of self, that the deeper I go into my past, the more I worry about the future, right? It's really it's a very exacting kind of science or mathematics. And the deeper you go into your sorrow is really like, it can throw you ways, trajectories, and places that are terrifying. But the thing that I want to say is that I really feel through many, many years, maybe decades of work, that you come out of that in a way that is clear. And when you are clear, you recognize not only that you are light, but that there is not a thing on this earth that can happen to you that can diminish that light. What we are cannot be diminished, but we can have the illusion of the experience of being diminished. So,
yeah, I think that's true.
Yeah.
Well, how about you and your meditation practice or spiritual practice? What have you found works? Or
it's really I read a book called The Snow Leopard by Peter Matheson, and it got sent to me, and those who know me well don't want to hear it. Because they're like, oh God, here we go again.
okay.
The Snow Leopard. But I talk about it, and I have spoken about it because it was a seminal work in my life. That, and Peter Matheson was a student of Zen Buddhism, who lost his wife, Deborah Love, to cancer, and then went on a journey with a geologist, George Schaller, and through the mountains of Nepal and Tibet. And it's a beautiful book, and it was in the 70s, and it won the National Book Club Award. But Matheson was a curious guy. I actually saw him speak in Pittsburgh, where he autographed a copy, and when he looked up at me, it was like it was a presence that was like so focused and concentrated, but free. And he was, he seemed pretty free to me as a person, open.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that Zen has always been, and Zen being just literally means meditation. It's dhyana, the Sanskrit dhyana, the Japanese chan, and then when it went, or the Chinese chan, and then came to Japan, it was Zen. And that word is literally just meditation.
Oh, okay.
So there are practices which I follow which are just counting the breaths. And for as long as I can, I do that.
Wow, great. Oh, that's wonderful, yeah.
So we've spoken a lot about the teachers, different teachers, like Paul and other people, Buddha, Lao Tzu. I was wondering if we could turn our attention to the one.
Okay.
To headquarters, as you say.
Yeah. Well, I, and this is one of the things we remind people of a lot, that, the one is not a man up in the sky or a person in a cloud, that it's an energy and a presence. And so we try to be kind of mindful of our language when we pray. That when you pray, dear loving Mother, Father, God, it kind of sounds like you're talking to somebody, like a person, as opposed to connecting with an energy or presence. And so, really I think language is a little bit limiting to try to describe an experience sometime. But it's, so prayer isn't so much talking to someone, but it's not to try to change something, but we think of prayer as to try to change ourselves, to kind of get into a place of openness and receptivity so that we can allow a greater experience of that oneness. And then it may come through us as a feeling of peace or harmony. It may come through us as a thought, as a divine idea of something we're meant to do. Or
how quiet can you get, Mary? How quiet can you get?
Oh gosh.
It's a well that is kind of, in a sense, bottomless, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think so. Yeah.
I mean, the one that creates this place, the one that creates this place. The Supreme, right? I think is a good way for me to...
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about it other than... What can you say, really?
Yeah. Well, I think of it as like an energy, a vibration, a feeling that we can sense. And people have different sort of preferred modes of experience. Natural. Some people are more kinesthetic; they feel things. People are more auditory; they hear something. Or some people are more visual; they will see colors or images of something. And other people could meditate for an hour and they say, "I didn't see anything." Nothing there. Somebody else describes something they describe. But we experience it differently. And it's all good.
And it's good. It transcends even that. And it's not going the other way. It's just beyond good.
Yeah.
Just beyond good. The other thing that arose was, I wanted to talk about this, and I don't like the way that the Torah or the Bible phrases this, but it says, male and female, he created them. And I think this has been the source of a great kind of like dissonance or disharmony with people.
Mm-hmm.
But let's strip away, because I think it's vital to do it, is the Platonic idea of one soul, halved. You know this notion that in the Torah it is taught that there is a soul, and God touches and severs it. For the two halves to descend in this world, to come together, and it's the soul with two faces. The faces are facing outward, and in God's great compassion, He severs the soul so they may meet face to face in this world.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we think metaphysically in the Bible that men represent our thinking nature, and female characters represent our feeling nature.
I love that.
And we all have both the masculine and the feminine.
We do.
And the thinking and the feeling nature within all of us.
Absolutely.
So it's not about
people
different groups of people. It's about our oneness. Everyone has thinking and a feeling nature.
Oh my God.
And so we both have masculine and feminine in us.
Absolutely.
Whether you're a female body or a male body, there's your masculine nature, which tends to be more about assertive and doing things and getting things done. And the feminine nature within everyone is the receptive part of us. That is, and
they say in Judaism. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to interject.
Yeah.
In Judaism, they say the same thing. They say that men kind of tend to shape or create the world to mold the world. Women appreciate it as it is, and then these two things together. Yeah, but it's the same as what you're saying.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt though.
Oh no, that's fine. And so we all have those qualities within us, or those capabilities, and sometimes one side's strengthened more than another, or expresses more. But yeah.
I know I have a creative writing professor who he said to me, and I was down there a long time ago, and he said, Joel, I remember when I discovered my sweet sister within, which is this kind of like very beautiful openness about the nature of like spirit, and like we are blended, and we want to carve up, or tend to carve up. We don't want to, but we do. We tend to carve up into this is masculine and this is feminine, but the beauty of the mystical life really tends to be a falling away of black and white into a beautiful, beautiful shade of gray.
Yeah.
So sometimes the Tibetan monks come, right?
Yes. And although they're not coming this summer, unfortunately, we usually get them when they're going down to Lilydale, and they come the weekend before, the weekend after, and I guess they're not scheduled for Lilydale this year, but they will be back next year, 2017.
That's exciting.
Yeah. But we've probably hosted them 8 or 10 years in a row, or out of the last 12 years. So it's been a big part of our experience, our ministry, and we love doing it.
They are beautiful.
So
they are beautiful.
Yeah.
I know you had on the table outside.
Yeah. That's a kind of a scarf that the monks was blessed by the monks, and they when the monks come, different people in our community host them, put them up in their homes for a couple overnights while they're here, and then they usually give that scarf to the people that have hosted the families. And for some reason, Bill realized he had a couple extra, and he wanted to put them out for anybody that would like one. Yeah.
So
and it's a little pouch that they.
It's gorgeous, the pouch.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's really great.
Oh my goodness, it's maroon and with gold embroidery. Beautiful.
So good. I'm really glad you saw that.
Oh my goodness, I felt called to it, and I know it's going to go someplace that belongs somewhere. So.
Good. Yeah, it's been a great honor to be able to host the monks, and Yeah. So
I bet they love this place.
they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. Every year there's a few that are the same, and then different ones. I think they come here from India, where their monastery is, for about 12 months, and they travel around, and then they get rotated to go back, and different ones come, and so. But we love having them here. So, okay.
Let's see.
Is that about
Well, I don't
enough
know.
material, or?
How are you feeling? I just want to check the time. You feel,
Yeah, that's probably. I feel.
You
pretty-
feel good?
Yeah.
We covered such a wonderful amount of stuff, and we covered it just right. I
Is
feel.
that okay? Good.
I think so.
Just something
So-
to work with. Yeah.
So, Mary, in closing, I just want to say a couple things. It's interesting that even when we do something anonymously, when we pray for people anonymously, it returns to us in a way, even with a more profound kind of effect, and we get caught off guard because we were so selfless in our expression of things. In the Snow Leopard, Matheson sat across from his wife Deborah Love before she passed away. In the story, in the book, it was an actual experience, and he began chanting. And he'd been in meditation a long time prior, and he was so clear when he saw her in the bathroom the day before. He had a foreboding of her death.
Wow.
And when he sat across from her, it just happened that he sat across from her in this meditation, he chanted with such fury for her, out of a great compassion for her, that something in him broke open. A kind of like crack in the intellect and psyche. And all he described was that there was this smile, right?
Wow.
And it began to engulf the room, this smile. And he wanted to inform the smile about Dee, we called his wife Dee, and her cancer. But he knew it was not needed. All will be and is known. And so he just enjoyed the presence of the smile.
Wow, yeah.
And so that was so beautiful. And I feel like it was through that like selfless chanting that Matheson was touched in that way. And so I just want to say thank you so much, Mary, for spending time with me. Is there anything in closing that you'd like to offer or say or that comes to mind?
Not that I can think of right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I feel complete. Yeah.
Is there a closing prayer that you'd like to offer? Or we good?
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Why don't we just give thanks for this time together. That we bless your work, Joel, and your ministry in the world, and all the ways that you touch people's lives with this radio program and with your work, and in so many ways we see you going forth as a light in the world, letting your light shine even more brightly. And may all that you do be a blessing and return to you 100-fold. Thank you, God. Amen.
Amen. Mary, you are so sweet. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You got to get going.
I realize